I've got a garden tip that I would like to share with you. This is regarding landscape fabric. Now, whenever I go into my clients' yards and we're talking about projects and we're talking about installations and what have you, I like to be as objectionable as possible. I'll give you what I think is good about an idea, why I think that may not be a good idea, and I'll be as informative as possible so that you as my client can make the decision that's going to be best for your yard. One of these things that I would like to talk about for just a quick minute is weed barrier / landscape fabric. I'm not a big fan of landscape fabric as a weed barrier. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through and I'll show you a couple of examples of what happens when you put landscape fabric into your yard. But to give you an idea, let's rattle off some of the pros and cons, just to make sure we know what we're talking about. So let's start with the cons. A bad thing about landscape fabric is that it creates a barrier for soil improvement. Whenever you put mulch or soil or any supplement into your garden beds, the purpose of putting this in is to enhance the soil below the materials you're putting on. So with compost mulch, the compost is going to decompose, it's going to break down, and it's going to turn into nice healthy soil below that level of where you installed it. The worms are going to come in, they're going to help compost it, they're going to aerate the soil by being in there, and it creates this nice mixture and helps to get a nice healthy soil. Same thing with the soil additives if you bring in a topsoil or whatever it is you bring in. The next thing that landscape fabric does is it comes in all different shapes and sizes. So you can get a soft woven fabric, you can get a perforated plastic fabric, or you can just put down flat plastic. Now to each degree of these are going to let in different amounts of water into the soil below. The woven fabric style is obviously going to give you more water penetration into the soil below. The water penetrating the fabric is going to feed the plants, the water, what have you. However, it's not 100%. And especially as you go through the different plastic materials that weed barrier is made out of, you're preventing that water flow even further. So let's say you've got a solid flat plastic across your bed. What's going to happen to the water? It's got nowhere to run to except out the bed, onto the driveway, into the lawn, anywhere except for the bed. So during the time that you've got this weed barrier down in your beds, the plants aren't getting water, the soil has stopped being enhanced, and the plants start to struggle to survive in that environment. What could also happen is if you install this weed barrier over top of wet soil to begin with, that wet soil is not going to dry up. It's going to stay there and it's going to start to rot anything that's below. So the roots of your plants are going to start to rot. Any material that was there that's trying to decompose is not going to decompose, it's just going to rot. When you get the rotting, then you get funguses, you get different insects, you get different... So this is a really good example of why landscape fabric is not a good idea to put into your beds. You can see that the roots of this creeping thyme have gone right through to the other side. Roots are under the fabric and roots are over the fabric. This is one product that I will tell you to stay away from. Do not spend your money on this. It will not do you any good whatsoever. Another problem that you have with landscape fabric is a weed barrier. It states on the packaging, a lot of them offer you a 25-year guarantee that it's not going to let weeds grow through it. This is true. This is true. I'm not disputing that, because if there's any weeds in the soil that is below the fabric, the chances of those weeds growing up and through that fabric are slim to none, and as long as that material is there, nothing will come up through the surface. However, there are weeds that propagate from different means than just what is in the soil below. You've got bird droppings carrying seeds. You've got the wind carrying seeds. You've just got weeds that are coming from every direction. So even though you're stopping the weeds from growing up from underneath, there is nothing stopping the weeds from blowing into your beds and growing into the new mulch, soil, whatever it is that you're laying on top of your fabric. When those weeds do blow in with mulch, it does make it easier because it's a loose, fluffy medium. So it makes it easier to pluck those weeds out. However, if you get a fabric as a base layer under your mulch, all of a sudden these weeds drill down, they hit the fabric, and they spread out. They can't go down, so they go sideways. As they go sideways, they start to find any little crack and crevice and any little perforated hole to get into the soil below. So now all of a sudden you've got a weed root that is spreading out in every direction, and it's starting to grab hold of the fabric below. So now you go out and start pulling weeds in your garden, you're going to start yarding up all that fabric that's underneath all your mulch, because there's nothing holding that fabric down except for the mulch. And if the weeds are stronger than the mulch is heavier, then that fabric is coming up through your mulch. Then you have to rake all your mulch back into a pile, lay your fabric out nice and flat, spread your mulch over top of it again. So those are the negatives of landscape fabric. Now, let's go over some of the positives. In all honesty, I cannot think of a single positive aspect of putting landscape fabric as a weed barrier in your garden beds. I have seen more problems with landscape fabric as a weed barrier than it has caused. Landscape fabric is meant for separating materials like rock and dirt. It is not a solution to weeding. If you think there's a solution to weeding your garden other than good old-fashioned labor, no. The only way to deal with weeds in your garden is go out there and enjoy your time in the garden. Go and pluck the weeds when you see them growing. When they're little tiny, go out and spend 10 minutes. Pluck them out. It's easy. Nothing to it. There is no such thing as a maintenance-free garden anywhere. Hope this helps. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you want to see some of the cleanups that we're working on and how this and how the projects are turning out, make sure you subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. I'll make sure to get to them as soon as I can. Check out our website, gardenersforhire.com. And if you live in the South Surrey White Rock area, contact us there and we'll be sure to get in touch with you.